Let them fail. A billionaire explains to gobsmacked CNBC host how capitalism is supposed to work. I found a great article that I would like you guys to take a look at, which actually has someone out there on a mainstream media. And I'm surprised that they allowed this gentleman to go on and air this segment and telling the mainstream media how it is that we are failing as far as keeping a true capitalistic system. Because what we have now, ladies and gentlemen, whether you believe it or not, doesn't really matter. It's not a capitalistic system. Let me tell you real quick what a capitalistic system is. Capitalism equals free trade, meaning that I can go to you and say, hey, you have that bicycle for sale? And you say, yes. And I ask you, how much do you want for it? And you say $100. And I'm like, well, will you take 70 for it? And you say, I won't take 70, but I'll take 80. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. I give you $80. You give me the bicycle. We are both happy. We just participated in what's called capitalism. Here's another example of capitalism. Let's say you have a bicycle shop and you're a terrible representative for that shop, meaning that you can't fix the bicycles really good, that your bicycles are overpriced, that you don't have very good customer service. Eventually your shop will fail. Why? Because people will stop purchasing from you and or stop using your services. And when your bicycle shop fails, you'll have to either claim bankruptcy, shut down your shop, depending on how big it is and everything. Let's say it's just a small shop. You just go out of business. And then if there's enough of a demand in that community for another bicycle shop to come up, then someone else will open a bicycle shop because they'll see that demand within the community. And more than likely, that person that opens up that new bicycle shop, he or she will probably get a lot of their inventory from the person who failed and pay that person who failed pennies on the dollar for their stock. You know, maybe they'll come to a negotiation where they get everything for half of what it was marked at. And they'll start their shop and they'll go at it. And they'll try to stay alive by providing a good service and providing a good value to the community. This is how crony capitalism happens. If your bicycle shop fails because you did everything wrong, the government comes in and says, hey, listen, I'm going to go ahead and bail you out. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the money from the public. We're going to get the money from the people. The people get to pay taxes so that I can bail you out. Why? Because I want you to succeed. But they only pick, the government only picks those businesses that they want to succeed, that they think should be allowed to succeed. Let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. American Airlines. I believe it's American Airlines, but it's most of the airlines right now. In the last 6 years or so, they've spent tens of billions of dollars in buying back their own stock. And why would they do this? They do this because when they buy back their own stock, instead of taking that money and reinvesting it into the company, instead of taking those funds and reinvesting it into their company, into their airline, by getting better equipment, by training their people, by giving their people, better salaries or better pay so that they can have a happier workforce and a more efficient workforce. Because believe it or not, if you get paid more, you tend to do more because you feel valued by your company that you're working for. Instead of doing that, they went out and they bought back shares of their stock. And why do they do that? They do that because when they buy back shares of their stock, it creates an artificial scarcity in their stock, which means that the less amount of stocks that are floating around in space to be bought up by investors are less. And that means that their stock value will go up. And what happens when their stock values are up and high? Well, take a look at the past. In the past year and a half, a whole bunch of CEOs and high-level executives at all these large corporations have been selling their stock while they were at their highest valuations. And most of these guys got out of the market before it started to plummet, like it did here in the last month and a half or so. That's the game that they play, ladies and gentlemen. And why do they play that game? Because they know that if they fail, the government will come in to bail them out with our money, with our labor. That's crony capitalism. When the government gets to pick and choose what businesses fail and which businesses don't. So let me go ahead and read this real quick. With millions of Americans sitting at home on their laptops, the passive viewership of cable news channels like CNBC must be way up this month, as finance nerds welcome normies to the strange and often hilarious world of live market news. In terms of drama, CNBC is usually pretty staid. But every once in a while, there's a fight or a contentious interview that really grabs people's attention. On Thursday, such a confrontation occurred during the halftime report of Scott, the Judge Wapner interviewed, early Facebook investor and uber wealthy VC investor, Chamath P. I won't try to pronounce his last name. Wapner brought up the question of the bailouts for Main Street and corporate America that the Trump administration had packaged as part of its $2.2 trillion plan. Mr. P raised an issue with the program, arguing that the administration would be using taxpayer money to prop up zombie corporations. And I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I agree with that statement 100%. These corporations that the government is bailing out with our money, with our labor, are zombie corporations or zombie companies. What is a zombie company? A zombie company is a company that is always in the red, that operates at a loss, that always has to borrow every year just to stay ahead. Kind of like the United States of America. For those of you that don't know, the United States of America is a corporation by law. And the only people that can bail out the United States of America is you and I. How? By promising the government that we will give them our future labor in the form of tax payments. Anyways, that's what a zombie corporation is, or a zombie company. For example, Uber. Uber, as much as some people may like Uber, Uber has never made a penny. Tesla, as much as some people may like Tesla, and as innovative as Tesla may be, Tesla's never made 1 red cent. Then Wapner asks, are you arguing to let airlines fail? And then Mr. P, who was speaking on the phone, responded with a very assertive yes. Wapner seemed blown away by this. Struggling to process the answer he had just been given, he followed up incredulously. But how does that make sense in the broader scheme of the economy? I haven't read this article yet, ladies and gentlemen, but let me go ahead and put my input on how that makes sense. You see, people think that when a company, like that bicycle shop, right? Well, let's use the airline, all right? That's a much better example. If an airline fails and they file bankruptcy, the day after they file bankruptcy, all of the employees are still there. It's not like you file bankruptcy and then with the swing of a wand, everything disappears. The employees are still there. The planes are still there. The pilots are still there. Their contracts are still there. All right? They just have to be renegotiated. So what happens after you file bankruptcy? Bankruptcy allows you to renegotiate your current contracts It allows you to start fresh. It allows you to start anew. And may some people lose their jobs? Sure, some people may lose their jobs. Because whoever comes in to buy that company after it's filed bankruptcy, they're going to try to look for cost-saving measures that would allow that company to run more efficiently and still provide the service that is required for them to stay in business. So the planes are still going to be there. The people are still going to be there. It's just the investors, the people that invested in these companies. They should have done their homework. And before investing in these companies, they should have said, wait a minute. In the last 6 years, you've bought back $13 billion worth of your own shares? Why aren't you taking that money and putting it into research and development, or the training of your people, or getting better equipment? Now you will have investors come in that will ask those questions because they don't want to lose their money. Anyways, I digress. Mr. P went off, and this is a quote. "This is a lie that's being propagated by Wall Street. When a company fails, it does not fire its employees. It goes through a packaged bankruptcy. If anything, what happens is the employees end up owning more of the company." Oh, I guess they end up owning more of the company because they probably get stock options, which would make sense. The people who get wiped out are the people who own the unsecured debt and the equity, but the employees don't get wiped out, and the pensions don't get wiped out. And if a bunch of hedge funds get wiped out, what's the big deal? Let them fail. So they don't get the summer in the Hamptons. Who cares? Man, I like this guy. That's him right here, Mr. P. Out in the real world, people say mean things about the rich all the time, but it doesn't happen quite as often on CNBC. In fact, sometimes CNBC's hosts seem downright confused when people don't seem to care about asset prices above all else, like the time Rick Santelli said, "We should all just go get infected and let grandma die to save the stock market." What's more, Wapner seemed almost personally insulted by Mr. P's response. See, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about you and me. These large corporations are not being bailed out for your and my sake. They are being bailed out, and I'm going to be so bold as to say this, and it's my opinion. They are being bailed out because they own the government. They feed these senators, these congressmen, they feed these high government officials money on a steady stream. And these government officials who we put in place to represent us, have sold us out for the most part. I know that there are still a few good ones out there that are fighting the good fight. I'm going to go ahead and leave the link to this article so you guys can go ahead and read it and see if you guys can find the video. I actually haven't found the video for this yet, but I'm going to try to look for it. And if I do, I'll go ahead and leave it in the link under the description. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. I appreciate you guys spending a little bit of time here today. Let me know, what's your opinion? Should we let a company fail? If a company hasn't been doing the right thing and they fail, should we let them fail? Or should we not? You know, go ahead and leave your comments down there. If we should, why should we? And for what reason do you think we should let them fail? And if we shouldn't let them fail and allow ourselves to be taxed in the future so that they can continue to rely on the practices that have made them fail over and over again, let us know why that's a good idea to keep bailing them out. Having said that, thank you again for joining in today. I hope you guys are all safe, healthy, and I hope that you're having a good week thus far. Thank God it's Friday, right? Ooh. All right. Many blessings to all of you and your families, and I am out.